My father always said money was the only way to measure a man's worth, and on the day I left home, he showed me exactly how little he thought I was worth. He didn't say goodbye, he didn't even look at me with sadness or regret, he just sneered, reached into his wallet, pulled out 5 crisp $20 bills, and threw them on the floor at my feet. Here, he said coldly, $100, that's about all a failure like you deserves. I was 22 years old. I had just graduated from college with a degree in engineering. My parents hadn't come to the ceremony, they didn't congratulate me or ask what I planned to do next. All they saw was that I wasn't following the family path, the one set in stone for generations. Banking, power, old money, that was the Harrison legacy, and I was walking away from it. I stood there in the living room of our mansion with one suitcase beside me, packed with everything I owned. Around me, everything screamed wealth: crystal chandeliers, marble floors, oil paintings, and antique furniture that had been in our family for over a century. And yet, in that moment, I'd never felt more alone. I looked down at the $100 on the floor. The money wasn't a gift, it was an insult, a reminder that in my father's eyes, I was worth almost nothing. "You're throwing your life away," he growled. "An engineering degree? Really? You want to play with wires and tools like some second-rate mechanic? No son of mine is going to waste his life in a lab." But I had seen something he hadn't. While he and his boardroom buddies were busy clinging to outdated banking models and patting themselves on the back for their loyalty to tradition, I saw the future heading straight toward us, fast, digital, and powered by technology. I believed that the next great innovations wouldn't come from mahogany-paneled offices, but from dusty garages and late-night experiments. My mother stood by the staircase, holding a martini even though it was barely noon. That had become her way of coping, numbing herself with silence, jewelry, and cocktails. "James, sweetheart," she said with a strained smile, "there's still time to fix this. Your father can talk to the board. You could come back to the firm." I looked at her, really looked at her. For years, I'd tried to make her proud. I'd played the polite son, wore the right clothes, kept quiet at family dinners, but nothing I did ever seemed to matter unless it fit into their world. "No, Mom," I said quietly, "I'm not going to pretend anymore. I'm done trying to be someone I'm not." My father's face turned red with anger. I'd seen that look since I was a child. It always meant danger. "Then leave," he snapped. "Get out. You're not part of this family anymore. No trust fund, no help, no legacy. You want to build your own life? Fine, let's see how far you get without the Harrison name." I picked up the money, folded it, and slid it into my wallet. "Keep the legacy," I said. "I'll build something of my own." He laughed, cruel and bitter. You'll never make it. Without this family, you're nothing." I didn't respond. I didn't cry. I just picked up my suitcase and walked out. The massive iron gates of the estate closed behind me with a loud, final clang. I didn't have a car, they had taken it back. I didn't have an apartment, the lease was tied to my trust. All I had was $100, a degree no one believed in, and an idea. I walked to the nearest bus stop and bought a $40 ticket to Silicon Valley. I spent another $10 on a burger and fries at a cheap diner while I waited. Sitting alone at a sticky table, I took out my notebook and wrote 3 promises. I will never use the Harrison name to get ahead. I will build something that matters. If I ever return, it will be on my own terms. I had $50 left, not enough to rent a place, not enough to eat for more than a few days, but I had my laptop, I had my mind, and I had an idea, one that had started forming in my last year of college. The world was shifting to renewable energy, solar and wind were growing fast, but there was a big problem nobody had solved: storage. Clean energy was great, when the sun was shining or the wind was blowing, but storing that energy, that was the hard part. The batteries were expensive, unreliable, and too slow to evolve. I had spent months working on a new kind of energy storage system. It was only a prototype, a theory really, but I believed it could change everything. My professors had said it was brilliant, but unrealistic. My father had called it delusional. But to me, it wasn't just an idea, it was my future. As the bus rolled out of the station, I stared out the window. My hometown faded behind me, the place I'd grown up in, the mansion, the wealth, the name, it was all gone now. But I didn't feel fear, I felt free. I didn't know what was coming, I didn't know how hard it would be, how many nights I'd go to sleep hungry, how many doors would slam in my face before one finally opened. But I believed in what I was building. That $100 wasn't the end of my story, it was just the beginning. 10 years later, I would return, not as the lost son, but as the CEO of a billion-dollar energy company. The boy who left with nothing but a suitcase, an idea, and a bruised heart, would come back as someone they never saw coming. But for now, I just had $50, a backpack, and a dream that wouldn't die. 5 years later, smile? No, I said as I adjusted my tailored suit in the mirror, but I think it's time to visit home. It had been 5 years since I'd spoken to my family. I hadn't stepped foot in the Harrison mansion, or their company headquarters, since the day I walked out with a suitcase and $100, but I kept an eye on them from a distance. News articles, financial reports, social media. I saw the signs. Harrison Sons Investment Group was struggling badly. The world had changed. Traditional investment banking was being replaced by new technology, the same kind of technology one had wanted them to invest in all those years ago. But they didn't listen. They laughed at me. Now, their empire was falling apart. Even worse, they were facing a hostile takeover. They didn't know who was behind it. But I did. It was me. The firm trying to take over Harrison Sons was called Digital Horizon Capital. What no one knew was that Digital Horizon was a shell company, one of several that belonged to my company, Nova Energy Systems, a tech-driven business I had started from nothing. The same idea they once mocked. Now it was worth over $4 billion. I booked a flight back to my hometown. This time, I wasn't returning to ask for approval or forgiveness. I was coming back to buy the very company that once told me I was worth nothing. Before I left, my friend and business partner Maya saw me looking at an old photo of my family. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked gently. I slipped the photo into a drawer. They taught me that money is what makes a man valuable. I'm just showing them what I'm worth. The return. The Harrison Sons building looked exactly the same. Grand stone pillars, shiny gold letters, marble floors. I remembered running through these halls as a child. Now I walked in, straight-backed, wearing a suit worth more than my father ever believed I'd earn. No one recognized me. "Mr. Blake, here to see the board," I told the receptionist, using the name I'd adopted after leaving. She smiled politely and directed me to the top floor. The boardroom hadn't changed either. Dark wood, old portraits, the Harrison family crest above the fireplace. I sat at the head of the table, where my father once ruled. One by one, the board members filed in. Then my father entered. His hair was grayer, his posture slouched, his face carried years of stress. He glanced at me but didn't recognize me. "Gentlemen," I began, calmly, "I'm here on behalf of Digital Horizon Capital regarding our acquisition offer." "We're not interested," my father snapped before I finished. "We're not selling to some no-name tech firm. Harrison Sons has lasted 150 years. And won't last another 5 unless you change." I interrupted. My voice dropped the polished tone. It was my real voice now. My father froze. His eyes widened. "James," he whispered. "Hello, father, miss me?" Silence swept the room. One of the older board members actually gasped. "Little James Harrison?" "It's James Blake now," I said, "and I'm not here to catch up. I'm here to take over." My father was still stuck in disbelief. "You work for them?" "No," I said, "I own them. Digital Horizon is part of Nova Energy Systems, my company." I saw it hit them, slowly, painfully. My father looked like he'd been punched. "You left with nothing," he muttered. "No, I left with $100, and an idea you didn't believe in." I nodded to my assistant, who handed out folders to everyone at the table. "Nova Energy is worth over $4 billion now. Over the past year, we've quietly bought 45% of your shares through shell companies. We also own most of your debt. The truth is, this company is already mine." He went pale. I stood. Harrison Sons will be merged with Digital Horizon. The Harrison name will be retired. The board dissolved. You, father, will step down, effective immediately. "You can't do this," he said, almost begging. "This is our legacy." "Your legacy is outdated," I said firmly, "and you refuse to change. I gave you a chance 5 years ago. You laughed at me." A board member tried to reason with me. "You're still a Harrison, James. We can work this out." I shook my head. "I stopped being a Harrison the day you all told me I was a failure. I'm not here for reconciliation. I'm here for business." I turned to leave but paused at the door. Oh, and remember when you said money was the only measure of worth? I smiled coldly. Well, what am I worth now? The deal. The next day was chaos. The news broke. Harrison's son's stock dropped. My father tried everything, old favors, emergency meetings, but it was too late. Every option was already blocked. Every door closed. 24 hours later, they signed the deal. In the same room where my father once threw $100 at my feet, I now owned everything. After the meeting, my father approached me. You planned all of this? No, I said, you planned it, the day you chose pride over progress. And now, he asked, will you destroy us? No, I'll rebuild it, but this time, it will be something real, something that matters. I didn't look back. 1 year later, I kept most of the employees. The company became part of Nova Energy and shifted its focus to sustainable technology, clean power, smart investing, a future that mattered. My father retired quietly. My mother sent messages, but I never answered. That chapter was closed. One day, Maya handed me a small box. It was from my father. Inside were the same $100 bills from years ago, and a note, you were worth more than I knew. I took the bills to a small cafe in Palo Alto, the one where I had eaten my first meal after leaving home. The barista who gave me extra fries that day now worked for me as a senior executive. I left the $100 as a tip. Some people say money can't buy happiness. Maybe that's true. But that $100? It taught me everything I needed to know about who I didn't want to be, and who I could become. And now? I built something greater than the Harrison name ever stood for. Not because of them, but in spite of them.